All right, well, welcome to Acidosis Part 2. And this one I entitled, Your pH is More Than What You Eat. So hopefully you've all been participating for the past week. And oh, by the way, this cover page is Janae, one of your classmates, actually painted this for me. And I wanted to show her. I had said to her when she presented it to me that it reminded me of a picture of myself from like 40 years ago or something. Not quite that long ago. This would be 30 years ago when I was at Duke. And so this is on Grandfather Mountain. So Erin, you know where that is. This on no, this isn't Grandfather Mountain, but near there, in that area, looking over. And I can't remember the name of the gorge. Anyway, it reminded me of that. And I was at my mom's. The picture was looking at me as I was making this. So, acidosis part 2. We talked about metabolic acidosis. I'll be talking about it this week when we talk about buffers because it's a very important thing going on in our body. And so again, our pH of our blood needs to be in a range of around 7.3, and we want it a little bit higher than that, 7.34. This is why I said you need to give your pHs to 2 decimal places, because a little change out there actually is the difference between these two pictures. And as if what you've been practicing this past week is hopefully you stopped eating crap. And yes, somebody made an acronym for this. I am not this clever, but carbonated drinks, refined sugars, artificial foods, processed foods, and that you moved to the rainbow of whole foods. I always thought it took quite some time, but actually your body responds pretty fast. So I'm excited to read how your week went. And so some of you may have taken the 7-day vegan challenge, which apparently your lovely chemistry teachers did not. I did, even though somebody gave us a whole bunch of tuna. I made something for all the people in my life, but I ate the beet salad, which I love beets. And some of you may have taken on the no sugar challenge. Yeah, and maybe some of you did both. All right. So these people, this is like a multiple choice. Let's do a video multiple choice for your midterm. Which of these has the healthiest pH of their blood? So the top left corner, this is a guy who was traveling around the world. It's been over 10 years, maybe 20 years. And he buys a week worth of groceries for the family in different countries and then takes pictures of it. So I actually have a magazine in my office with some of the original pictures. And the one that struck me always was that top left-hand corner, which is from Australia. And this is actually a newer picture. The amount of animal products is phenomenal, and the amount of processed food in all the pictures over the past 10 years has changed and just become crazy. The original picture from Australia, there really was no color other than the meat, and there were some potatoes. There was no other fruits or vegetables. Yeah, Mexico, look at all the Coca-Cola. Fascinating. Even the one in the bottom right, Egypt, you know, it's a sign of wealth to be able to have processed food, apparently. Personally, me, I want to move down to with these people from Ecuador. Not only do they have the cool hats, but look at that food. Look at the plantains. Look at the grains. And look at those smiles. Oh, so usually that picture I just showed, I talk about when I teach my biochem class, and I talk about when I talk about ROS, which is radical oxygen species. And then I talk about antioxidants. So radical oxygen species are oxidation to our body. And yes, eating processed food, such as bacon or the cheese whiz tail, versus eating the berries on our walk today. I just picked berries along the way, and I met a guy yesterday who taught me how to pick the salmon berries, how to know when they are ripe, and so I'm very grateful. And so I'm like the little mouse eating the berries, which are loaded with antioxidants. And so then I thought, well, we know, this is my thought process you're going to listen to for the next 10 minutes, how my mind thinks. Acidosis, when you eat processed food, when you eat highly animal-based, the American diet. And alkalosis is where we want to be when you're eating fruits and vegetables. And so I got to thinking. It's actually Joey thinking. And I thought, you know, in case you don't know something about me, before my glory days at MHCC, I was on campus yesterday. It was awesome. There was nobody there. Before I learned how to balance marshmallow on my head, that's a fractal, by the way. Before I learned how to do Qigong, and I'll be getting to that in the end of the talk, and you can see the fairy there in case you couldn't. I had a little touch up. After that, although that is related, that's my twin brother. I was a Nittany Lion at Penn State, and that is where, yes, I was a mutant too. You can pick what mutant you want to be, but I actually am a gene jock. My background is in biology, but there was no such thing as molecular biology, but my background is working with DNA. And so talking about mutations are caused, just wait, we'll get around how this is all connected to what we're doing. Oh, x-rays and cigarettes, and that's benzene, the classic, fits right into the double helix twist there, and mercury and lead, right? Mad Hatter, the mercury from the felt made them all go crazy. And viruses, certain viruses can cause mutations, and sunlight, yeah. Oh yeah, and crappy food, whether it's deep fried or, you know, highly processed like bacon, or just sugar and just more crap. And oxygen. Yeah, oxygen creates mutations because it's so greedy for electrons. Oh, and attitude. We should mention attitude creates mutations. And what are some of the effects of mutations? You can pick which type of cancer. They also destroy your cell membranes. That's actually a big one. It's very much overlooked. If you look at the cell membrane for a minute, all of your cells are covered with this. Now, if you ever see a computer chip, just look at it different for a minute. Yeah, we create what's inside of us. But if you destroy your cell membrane, which is your walls around every cell, you suddenly have holes in the walls that are around you. Oh, that's not going to be good. Cell membranes are very important. Heart disease, liver disease, cataracts. This lady's probably much younger than me. Oh, cold. Your immune system is affected by all those things. Cancer cells, pain, inflammation, kidneys. I usually emphasize inflammation, but it's really the cold. And it turns out all those things are also caused by the acidic blood, the unhealthy immune system that is created when we have blood that is not in the alkaline range, cancer and all those other things. And so I got to thinking, because I also, when I talk about DNA, that they found that our diet changes the methylation, the acetylation, and the phosphorylation of the histones that wrap the DNA, which determine what genes are expressed. And genes are downregulated or upregulated, and you should chew your food. I have a whole spiel I go into that our food affects our pH, and our food also affects our DNA. It made me start thinking, the same foods that we know help our DNA, our histones, to wrap our DNA so we express the genes correctly, are the same ones that keep us in alkalosis. And then I thought, oh, wait a minute. This is one of my favorite studies I read this past year. And it's a study out of China, and they looked at telomeres. So telomeres are the ends of your DNA. They're like the egglets is what they call them, at the end of your shoelaces. And every time you replicate your DNA, you lose a little bit. And eventually you lose the ends of your DNA. Our DNA, human DNA, is actually very different from other DNA. And eventually your DNA, if you lose the telomeres, it comes unraveled. And that's not good, because that means the cell dies and you die. And so they looked at different diets because we've learned how in the past several years how to measure telomeres. So they put you on a whole food diet, or they put you on what they called the macho diet, which was the standard American diet, or they put you on what they said was the Asian diet, but is really the American Chinese food diet, which is high in rice, highly processed polished rice, meat, and really covered with oil and sugar. Or they put you on the high energy density diet, which was sugar, wheat, and processed food, which sadly is what was in kids' school lunches. Anybody want to guess? When they went then and looked at the people who were put on each diet, and it's a short term, this was like a month long or something, they measured telomeres and they could see a difference in the telomeres. So 3 of them decreased the telomere length, so their telomeres shrunk in that month. And one of the diets, this is a really tough multiple choice, they actually saw the telomeres became longer. And this, of course, would be the gorilla diet. So there's a Dr. Joel Fuhrman who talks about we should be eating like gorillas, which is spinach and lettuce and bananas. All right, so is it nature or nurture? So again, I'm a gene jock. I thought it was all nature, and I've completely changed my mind. I don't think your DNA does much more than is a symphony inside of you. So the standard American diet. So this is a study from just a year ago published. Telomere shortening rate predicts lifespan. And the thing that's fascinating that they have found, our telomeres shrink every year, about 15 units. So not a big deal, right? We got 2.9 billion base pairs in the human DNA, which is so much longer than anything else. What was the #1 shrinker? Oh, processed meat, bacon. Bacon was the best one at shrinking our telomeres. Saturated fat. #2, or actually, I'm sorry, was sugary drinks. Any surprise there? It was the same as smoking. And smoking got banned. Well, not banned, but smoking, right? There's a warning label on it. Do you guys have a warning label on your processed food or your sugary can of drink? So it got me to thinking, because I teach about this, and then I made that slideshow about acidosis, and the cause of acidosis is both meat and sugar. So is there a connection? Yeah, these genes are silenced by these. The thing that is more fascinating than this, though, is you could actually increase the length of your telomeres. So it was thought that we always are decreasing them. It turns out we can make them longer. We can actually enhance our lifespan. And the biggest change of all was not your diet. This is a picture of Joey when he was 2, watering my flowers. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service. It was service. Service to others actually was the best thing at increasing the length of telomeres. And so this is a study I read about on the train, and it just fascinated me. And it was a study in which they looked at a group of people who suffered from depression in both the United States and China. And what they did is they told the people, for the next 3 months, just do what makes you feel good. And they wanted to see what would happen. So after 3 months, people in China were all better. But the people in the US were not at all. Why was that? What happened? You know, first you want to say, oh, it's the diet, standard American diet. Oh, it turned out when they looked at what the Americans were doing that made them feel good, They did what made them feel good. They went shopping. They exercised more. They did self-help, etc., etc. You want to know what the people in Asia did? They did what made the people around them feel good. They did service. Think about it. Being of service to others actually makes you feel better. The other thing that made the telomeres longer was gratitude. This is a picture from, this is Chris's daughter. He was in my class 10 years ago and has been helping me for 10 years with my kids' class. And he sent me this picture and I asked if I could include it. So then I got to thinking, so your pH, does it change your telomeres? Because the same thing that causes acidosis is the same thing that shrinks your telomeres. Can pH cause an epigenetic shift? So epigenetics means beyond our DNA. It's not your DNA sequence as much as what of your DNA sequence is expressed. I don't actually look like the gorilla. This is me thinking. This is me really thinking. Sitting on the unicorn. So I said, okay, well then, what if you did service? Would that change your pH and put you to alkalosis? That's really what I look like. So let's move on, because there's one more step to this, and that is cortisol. It is a hormone produced in our adrenals, right above your kidneys, and anytime you're stressed, you release this hormone into the blood, and it travels to your liver. It is non-polar. I know you see all those OHs there, but every corner on that molecule is a carbon, and it's just too big. It's too bulky. There's not enough oxygens. It has a little boat, carries it to your liver, and then it binds the DNA in your liver and tells it to do some things. It is released anytime you are stressed. This is part of the fight or flight or freeze response. So anytime adrenaline is released, cortisol is released. And so cortisol, we are in a state of chronic perpetual stress right now in 2020 more than other times. So all the other species, like the cat and dog here, they have a stress, they react, and then they go back to normal. Like my cat sleeping behind me right now, and I bump him, he wakes up, and then he goes back to sleep. You can pick which gingerbread is your stress, right? Are you just like the messed up gingerbread? Are you angry? Are you confused? Are you anxious? And what happens? Cortisol goes to your liver, and it tells you to make glucose. Gluconeogenesis means you're making glucose in a new way, not from your diet. But it turns out your body wasn't actually stressed. We get a stress, and then it's gone a minute later. It wasn't a real stress like our body was meant to deal with. So it could be something on social media, so many things. And so your body has to do something with all that glucose it just made in the liver, and it stores it as fat in the belly. Late night is one of the best ways to keep your cortisol up high. It depletes your thyroid, it suppresses your thyroid, and because your liver is working overtime doing these other processes, it doesn't detox as well. Our busy schedules, it's been a shock to me coming back to Oregon how busy everybody is. April, spring term was kind of delightful. I'm in shock this term. You guys are so busy. Usually we go to school and we're focused. You guys all just wrote to me these lovely post labs in your Le Chateliers, how you are setting up designated times for studying. We only got 4 weeks to go. 1 week's down of our 5 weeks. You guys need a schedule. Set up a schedule. Get this in control. It depletes your immune system. Big Yeah, it shifts our pathway. Our melatonin and cortisol flip-flop each other. So if you're not doing sleep, if you are looking at a computer screen after 10 o'clock at night, it suppresses your melatonin and your cortisol doesn't get turned down. There's a lot more to this. It would require your biochemistry, but basically, how do we decrease our cortisol? One way is sunshine, the importance of sunshine, and some of that has to do with they come from the same precursor molecule, which interestingly is cholesterol, and cholesterol makes both of them. If you're getting sunshine, sunshine is making vitamin D, and so you're not making the cortisol. Exercise, and exercise in the sun, sleep, because I just talked about the link to melatonin, and of course, diet, a whole eating healthier. It turns out some of the other big ones are gratitude, prayer, meditation, as well as laughter, which is the Dalai Lama has the most beautiful laugh. Now this is interesting. Humans are the only species that can turn on the stress response by thought alone. So again, when your cat or dog gets scared, they're scared for the moment and then they go back to normal, go back to sleep. You've all seen it. We can create it. They can only be stressed by an actual stress. We can create the stress in our brain. I had a meditation teacher and he said, we are all movie directors. We create these movies of our life in our brain, and most of us are really crappy directors because nobody else comes to our movie except ourselves. And so you can decide, do you want to create a horror movie or do you want to create a comedy? Do you want to have fun? And that's what is meant here, that you create, allow your mind to blossom. Choose love. You always have that choice. This is, I do not remember who it was who I had a discussion with, but Dr. Joe Dispenza this is an amazing book, and he talks about survival versus creation. So are you in this cortisol stress place, or are you in a creative place? Are you allowing your mind to blossom? So the effects of norepinephrine, adrenaline, and noradrenaline. So, right? We start sweating, we're going to, oh, look, I got a laser. This is a simpler slide. That adrenaline makes our muscles tighten up, and then we actually have a complement, which is our endorphins, our oxytocin, serotonin, melatonin, which makes us feel loved, safe, supported. So collect and protect or nourish, choosing love. And that's Olivia, one of the kids in my kids class, going, choose love. Amen. Hallelujah. And so these are your chemistry teachers. You are now entering a stress-free zone. So for this 7-day challenge, where are your fairy godmothers there? That's what the picture reminded me of. Is you have a choice. You choose one of these 4 things and you do it for a week, and then you'll write to me about what you did. And service. So service is all different things, and it can be something different each day. So it could be that you don't normally do the dishes, you just start doing the dishes. Or, I don't know, everybody will know if you pick service. Gratitude. So this was actually the most popular one in the spring with my Chem 106 class. You're going to keep a gratitude journal, and I am going to be posting in about half hour the lab, because it's a 7-day challenge and you need to do this for 7 days. And it gives you several things you're going to do under gratitude, including saying grace with every meal. I am not good at this. I grew up doing this at every meal, saying grace, and then somehow I stopped doing it. And I am trying my best to do it again. And so besides writing down, I don't need your gratitude journal. I don't actually want it. You're going to do it. And then at the end, you'll summarize how it went over the week. Yeah, expressing gratitude could be kissing the cook or giving a hug to a loved one. What fills your heart? And again, if that's going to be your choice, read the pieces that you have to do. It involves every morning waking up with gratitude and going to bed again with gratitude. All right, and that's my mom. And so that's the, oh, that's a chocolate raspberry pie, raw vegan pie that I made for her while I was there. And so, yeah, my gratitude. So expressing gratitude for somebody and each day and different people each day. See. Oh, and then your third choice. So this is what the name of the lab is, Acidosis versus Gigglosis. So Joey is our poster child here. This was, we were playing Uno at my mom's house, and you've all been there where you just start giggling. Something happens that is really silly, and you just, like with your family or those you're closest to, and you just start giggling. Oh, it's not just giggling. You got to giggle until you're wiggling and jiggling. And those of you who are in my chemistry before, you've heard me talking about that. And so what is it? Now, this is a tough one, but are you up to it every day? And it is that not only do you have to giggle every day, you have to make somebody else giggle until they jiggle and wiggle with you. Imagine that. So it could be having a picnic and just being silly. So you get that person do it every day for 7 days. Imagine what will happen over those 7 days if you can do that. Oh, there's one more choice. There's 4 choices. And it is because, again, this is me thinking through, your breathing affects your pH. That is Pemba. It's Joey's dad on top of Mount Everest, highest point on Earth. There's 25% of the oxygen as there is here. And yeah, he's got his oxygen mask not on, so he's holding Nepalese flag. And so what happens? There's not enough oxygen. And so you start breathing more, deeper. And so you lose the CO2. And Le Chatelier's principle, this whole thing is going to shift to the left. The hydrogen decreases. He sends himself into alkalosis. He ends up, when he comes all the way down to Camp 2 in 1 day, ends up passing out because of the alkalosis. It's a very cool story. But what most people are in is a state of respiratory acidosis. So metabolic acidosis is caused by our diet and our stress. Stress actually has a double whammy, but smoking does change your lungs. So there's a picture of our normal alveoli. And then what happens over time is you lose all those, there we go, the stressed little mouse. We lose all the surface area. And so you cannot breathe out the CO2. And so the CO2 accumulates. And so Le Chatelier's principle, higher levels of CO2, and unfortunately I'm not getting my pointer to work, but looking at our Le Chatelier's principle at the top, high CO2 shifts this, because you can't breathe it out, shifts it, so you end up with more hydrogen ion, which means you drop your pH and you're in respiratory acidosis. So your other choice to send yourself to alkalosis each day is to breathe. And this is the one that several of you who had me last term, I'm giggling and smiling because several of you have asked, are we going to get this option again? And here it is. I had already knew this was up my sleeve for week 2, and it will extend into an extra credit. That any of these choices, whatever choice you pick, you have to do it for 7 days. And if you want, you can do it for the whole term. And you'll write about your experience after 7 days for the lab. And then if you do it for the whole term, you'll write to me at the end and tell me. And it is one of those things that is extra credit. And so this is Thich Nhat Hanh, who won a Nobel Prize, talking about breathing. These are Tibetan monks that I got to tutor in English, and that is Sunam over there on the left doing an Om. And Sunam never spoke a word of English. That is how great my tutoring career, my teaching career started out. Sunam and I had always been able and still can communicate without any issues at all. And there is right being here now. That's Joey in Nepal pretending to meditate. But Joey is actually inspiration behind this lab, which I started like 2 years ago, I think, with my other class, because every day he meditates. That's me in Oregon on our first road trip across country. That's actually doing yoga, but I do Qigong every day. So meditation is a very personal thing. It could be sitting in, Joey doesn't have the proper spine there. It could be yoga. Now, if it's yoga, it can't be with loud music playing. I do a qigong, which is very, most yoga is done now is not quite the meditative yoga that yoga is supposed to be. It could be reading the Bible, reading a psalm, reading a verse, and sitting quietly and reflecting on it. It could be singing bowls. If you play singing bowls, you can do a concert. That would be amazing. It could be, and actually the handout has some suggestions of listening to a guided meditation. So I have some days and I cannot sit quietly. And so I have to listen to a guided meditation. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, because that is how I'm able to shut off the world. And it's up to you if it's standing, if it's sitting, if it's lying down. I've been really tired for the past week. And so in the afternoon between the office hours, I will go and meditate. And sometimes it is standing, and sometimes it is sitting, and sometimes it is laying down, listening to a guided meditation for 20 minutes. And it is amazing. And so if you already have a practice, which some of you started last term and have told me you've continued, my challenge to you, add a dimension to it. Add something new to it. So continue with what you're doing, but add another piece to it. So maybe you listen to a meditation every morning, or you sit quietly. Well, add another time of day. Or maybe you do, like Megan, you said you do 10 minutes every day. Well, try for 1 week. Try and see if you can do 15 minutes every day for a week and see if there's any change. And it was interesting last term because several people did it for a week, and then they're like, well, I'm going to do the extra credit. And they said, after 7 days, I didn't really notice anything. And some of them, a lot of people said, I tried one of your guided meditations and I didn't like it. You have to find one that gravitates to you. And then I found this, and this worked for me. And this was one student, I remember, he said he did it for a week, and, it was nice. It was relaxing. And then he continued. And it was after 2 weeks. And what he wrote about was really amazing. And so I would encourage you to pick well. So let's go through. Oh, this was the other piece. You have to smile when you meditate. It is actually one of the most important parts of meditating. That's why it's really hard to find a really good picture of people meditating. But if you ever see the Tibetan monks, there's always a smile. So you have a choice. You can giggle for a week, making somebody else in your life giggle. Isn't that an awesome picture? You can meditate and smile every day, sitting, just breathing in and breathing out, just quietly. If you're having trouble, send me an email. We can talk about it. Oh, you can do gratitude, expressing gratitude to the people you love, expressing gratitude for the food you have. Or you can be of service. Cleaning the toilet, that's a huge service. Cleaning the litter box, Joey does that for me, huge service. And there is a bonus built in. There's actually 2 bonuses. One bonus is involve a loved one for the whole week. The other bonus is beyond just doing, let's say you pick meditation, you do it for a week, and you continue till the end of the term, but next week you add another one. So then you're doing meditation and gratitude, and you continue with both of those. And then the next week you add another one. So you start giggling. If you've been meditating and doing gratitude, the giggling should not be an issue. And then finally, by the last week of the term, you're doing all of these every day with somebody else, that just getting them involved. So it's just amazing. All right. That would be it. And let's see how this stuff. So happy giggling, service, gratitude, meditate.